starting to now live their life in college, we want them to know as well that these programs will be there just as strongly for them in the future. That's why I think we're here, and that's why I'm proud now to recognize the two great champions in the Democratic Caucus on this issue. I'll start first with Congresswoman Doris Matsui from the great state of California. Doris.
Thank you, Javier, and thank you for your leadership in the caucus and also on the Ways and Means Committee. We understand how important this is. We try to celebrate this every year because it is so important. And I'm really happy today that I see some young people amongst this group here too, because these 4 programs ultimately are for all of us as families. So it is something that we as Democrats really do cherish and want to ensure that they're there for the generations as we move forward. I want to thank my co-chair here, Jan Schakowsky, on Senior Task Force. We've really had a good time together doing this and got to know each other and got to understand truly what it means to have these programs, really insurance in place for all Americans. And we want to make sure that not only do we preserve it, but we make it stronger and sustainable for everyone in the continuing generations. That means not only for our grandparents, our parents, ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, and forevermore into the future. We are celebrating anniversaries today because I always believe, and I think you do too, we ought to celebrate and remember and cherish them and understand that we can't take anything for granted. So we have a cake here today that we'll all share with you later on, but it is a time to celebration and a time to move forward and look ahead to what we must do. The Older Americans Act, so important, Meals on Wheels and caregiver support. Medicaid and Medicare, so very important for our essential health coverage. And then obviously Social Security, our insurance, retirement security, which has become more and more important as we see what's happening to pensions. This is going to be absolutely critical as we move forward. And when you think about the fact that, you know, Jan and I are women too, as you noticed. We are very active with the Women's Caucus also, and we also know that women in particular lose out a great deal because many times they're not paid as much as men, and also because they step out of the workforce being caregivers, and so their Social Security is not as robust as it could be. So we hope to be helping in that regard also. We truly believe that these programs are lifelines and life supports and life for all of us as Americans. Which makes us really unique in this country is that we look upon each other and we want to help each other. And it's a compact amongst the generations. We cannot lose that. That's what makes us strong for the future. So I would like to just say that the Democrats on the Senior Task Force are ready to serve. We're out there and we want to help and we want to be there with you. And we are there with you. And we want to include everyone in this process as we really look forward to what is going to be happening in the coming years. I do appreciate very much being here with my colleagues, and I know, hi Marcy. Marcy Captor has also joined us too, and others will be joining us as we continue with this program. But I want to present my really wonderful co-chair, Jan Schakowsky.
Oh, where's Dave? Come on, Dave, come on. Pull up a chair, come up front. Dave Loebsack from Iowa. Yeah, come on, Dave. So if you look around at these decorations, you'll see that this is reminiscent of the celebrations on Monday of the 4th of July, our Day of Independence, and we celebrated our nation's 240th birthday, and the fundamental idea of independence. And so today we're really celebrating the idea of senior independence that comes about because of these incredible programs that have been in place for a long time. Most of us can't imagine a time before Social Security when a person could no longer work, had to rely on his children, or in fact, enter a poorhouse. There were such things. Some of us here, probably most of us, well, no, there's young people too, that don't remember the days before Medicaid and Medicare, when half Americans had no health care coverage, half of older Americans. And when getting sick or injured or needing long-term care probably meant bankruptcy for many, many people. President Franklin Roosevelt knew that was wrong when he made the passage of Social Security a priority, and today it keeps 22 million Americans, including 15 million seniors, out of poverty. Welcome to Norma, Doris. We're happy to see you from California. President Roosevelt called Social Security a foundation, and President Johnson and Congress built on that foundation by enacting Medicare and Medicaid and the Older Americans Act. And together, these four national treasures allow seniors to retire with a basic degree of dignity and independence. Social Securities and Medicare's earned benefits provide financial and health security. Medicare helps pay for long-term care services and supports. And the Older Americans Act provides the assistance many need to stay in one's home and in communities, from Meals on Wheels to transportation to help with caregiving. So today, we're celebrating because these achievements are helping millions and millions of Americans. And we are not going to let anyone weaken their protections by turning Medicare into a voucher program. Am I right? We're not going to let anybody cut Social Security benefits, right? Or block grant Medicaid. Not going to happen, right? Or raising the age of eligibility for any of these programs, right? Keep your hands off. Where's your shirt? Hands off. No cut, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and we're going to add the Older Americans Act too. And you can just count on all of us here to be fierce warriors against any of the dangerous proposals that are brought up, and they have been. We saw that Speaker Ryan now has put out a proposal that would raise the age of Medicare to 67. No. So today we're also celebrating the growing recognition that it is our time to build upon the solid foundation that we've been giving. If FDR could create Social Security during the Great Depression, we can protect and expand its earned benefits today at a time when the United States, not for everybody, but altogether is richer than it ever has been before. Unfortunately, most of those increases have gone to people at the top. So we're the richest country at the richest period in our history, and personal wealth in the United States is at a record $88.1 trillion. So we can increase earned benefits and improve the COLA at the same time. We can also improve Medicare and Medicaid. How about it? Do you think we can add dental and vision and hearing care to Medicare? Yes. Can we provide more support for home-based care? Yes. Can we lower prescription drug costs? Yes. You bet we can, and we better do it. This is our time to act. It's our job to strengthen and expand seniors' independence. And together, we're going to get that job done for this, and as everyone has mentioned, for future generations as well. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Rich Fiesta from the Alliance for Retired Americans. He's executive director of the ARA and a real fighter for the interests of seniors and families. The Alliance has a strong presence here in Washington, D.C., but even more important, it has members and state organizations around the country, including in my home state of Illinois. In fact, I used to be the executive director of the organization that is now called the Alliance for Retired Americans. It was the Illinois State Council of Senior Citizens. That's where I got my start. And under Rich's leadership, we have activists that are building strong campaigns and coalitions to strengthen and expand programs that work for seniors. So welcome, Rich.
Yes, when the music stops, grab a chair, isn't it, the old game? Thank you, Congresswoman Schakowsky and other members, and indeed, we do have strong chapters, in fact, in all of the states of the members who are here today, and our Virginia president, Mr. Scott, is here, Ron Thompson, who drove all the way from Ivor, Virginia, down, which is down there in the southeast part of the state. Right.
Not next door anymore.
Get you some more friends and help here. Well, this is a great month for senior independence because it was 51 years ago now, that all of these acts were signed, when Congress could actually pull up its sleeves, pull out the pens, compromise, and get some good bills. 51 years. A year ago, we were in this exact same room to celebrate the Medicare signing, the 50th anniversary when President Johnson signed it at the Truman Library. But just last week, on July 1st, 2016, was the 50th anniversary of when Medicare was implemented, when seniors could get health care, when health care was available without regard to their pre-existing condition or their race or whatever need they may need. So we are on our 50 years and 5 days now of seniors having Medicare and having a Medicare card in their wallet. And it'll soon be 81 years that Social Security, again, providing that independence from poverty, the independence on relying on friends or the rest of your family. And I know it's been very important to all of our members and even to members of Congress. Mr. Loebsack has talked in the past about how important Social Security was to his family growing up, for example. So I'd like to introduce one of our members from right here in Washington, D.C., Diane Fleming, who can tell us about the importance that these programs have made to her life and in her retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich, and our honorable dais here. It's just wonderful to everyone, old, young, and it's just a great thing to see so many of our young people that will carry this on. I'm Diane Fleming, and I am from the Anacostia neighborhood, which literally is about 5 minutes away across the bridge. I'm a retired member of the International Association of Machinists, and I'm here today on behalf of the Alliance for Retired Americans. Today we're celebrating Social Security and Medicare, two of the most successful programs, and we've gotten statistics on how many people benefit from these programs. We're surrounded by others who are also fighting to expand, protect, and preserve Social Security and Medicare. Thank you all so much. It is appropriate that this event is around 4th of July, our Independence Day, and the celebration of birthdays of the programs. As an adult, I worked for United Airlines for 39 years. The company quit paying into our pension. So as a result, my pension was lost. So I had to go with the government guaranteed pension to get my somewhat of a payment. I had to take Social Security at 62 in order to supplement my income. Millions of Americans and future retirees, the current benefits, there's no guaranteed pension plan anymore. So, you really have to be careful with how you invest and what you do. Wages haven't kept up with the cost of living. So that's why many of us, I have to take a part-time job to help supplement. In the meantime, I'm still paying into Social Security. They take out money, as you still work. I thought that was going to end. I called and said, well, I'm on Social Security. Do I still have to pay? They said, yes, you have to keep the bank going. So that's what that's about. But we've paid into this benefit. And it, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, all right. Medicare is also so important. I just had a reoccurring bout with thyroid cancer. So I had to go and have many tests and many scans done. And they are so expensive. So I would not have been able to do this without Medicare, because I would either have lost my place to live, become homeless, or you have another choice, is not to be able to get these things, which, you know, you can then not live any quality of life. My story actually started, I'm getting a little bit off track, at the age of 3. My father died when I was 3. My sister had just been born. So as a result, my mother was able to receive Social Security benefits to sustain us until we reached age of 18. So that's one of the things that many Americans, many families that have lost loved ones and able to keep their family going, they receive Social Security benefits. So it's not just for us old people, it benefits many people in our country. If Speaker Ryan's proposal were to become a law, seniors would be deeply hurt, and we seniors know that. We cannot afford to wait until we're 67 to go on Medicare, and privatization is another word for benefit cuts. The Affordable Health Care Act, we feel confident about the future of the Medicare's as it turns 51 in 2016. We intend to make sure it's still strong, thanks to all of our help here and all of our help. We have to get out and make sure that we vote the right way, not just for the top office, but those other offices like here. Those are the most important things, you know, because there are 3 forms of government, which one of the candidates doesn't realize. You know, so anyway, we have to make sure that we select the right people for our benefits. And one of the young men I was talking to, and we said, you know, the why. So the why is that we want to make the quality of life better for everyone. And it's about caring and love for our fellow Americans. And it's you know, the why is very simple. So if we did that, we would not have to go through all these exercises. So thank you very much.
I really want to thank you, Diane. You know, I'm glad you pointed out the family aspect of Social Security. I have 2 grandchildren who receive Social Security checks because their mother died, and it's a really big help to my son and as a single parent raising the family. So it's an insurance policy really for all Americans. Now it is my pleasure to introduce a friend and the president and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, Max Richman. And Max is a consistent and persistent champion of seniors and the need to protect and expand Social Security and Medicare to ensure that all seniors are able to live with independence and dignity. He travels the country to get out the facts and the priorities that are important to seniors and their families. Let's give it up for Max Richman. And let me just acknowledge that we've been joined by Lois Frankel from California and from Florida, and Lucille Roybal Allard, where is she, from California? Sorry, Frankel is Florida.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me thank Congresswoman Schakowsky and Congresswoman Matsui for inviting me and we call them CATS. C-A-T-S, right? Thank you for being here. My job is to introduce John Glazer. and he's going to make a statement in a few minutes. But before I do that, I just wanted to mention, and some of this has been referred to, there are two questions that I hear more often than anything else at town hall meetings around the country. And persistent, some people call me obnoxious, but persistent is okay. But the two questions are, why is Washington taking away our COLA? That's the way people see it. Why is Washington taking away our COLA? No COLA in 2010, no COLA in 2011, no COLA this year, and based on what the trustees told us a few weeks ago, there may be no COLA next year in 2017. It is unimaginable to believe that seniors have not had inflation affecting them in all these years. That does not make sense. And the other thing I hear so often is why are so many politicians calling Social Security an entitlement? As Congressman Becerra mentioned, it's an earned benefit. It's paid for during a lifetime of work with a FICA tax on wages. So I just mentioned these because I think Congress needs to respond. And I've done town hall meetings with many of the members here, or teletown hall meetings with Congresswoman Frankel and Congressman Becerra. And I did one with you a number of years ago where we had an interpreter who translated everything I said into Spanish, only it took him about 10 times as long to say it in Spanish, so I think he was giving his own speech. But it's been an honor for me to work with all of the members of Congress here over the years. Now, John Glazer recently retired. He worked at the Committee to Preserve Social Security, and we miss you, John. But he came to us from a long career as an organizer, working with low-income communities across the United States and across the world. And he has had a firsthand experience in over 20 countries with the importance of social insurance, with the social safety net, and the kind of medical services that are required for a decent quality of life. So John was with us for 16 years as a grassroots manager at the National Committee. He's retired, but we didn't want him to get off that easy. We asked him to come back and speak this afternoon. John.
Well, thank you, Max, and thank you, Representatives Schakowsky, Matsui, and Becerra, and for inviting me to, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today about Social Security and what it means to the independence of seniors, which to me is very important because I spent so much a part of my life working with seniors. And part of my life as a social worker and a community activist and an aging advocate, and now as a beneficiary, I've seen really basically firsthand, not only here in the U.S., but other countries that I have lived in for periods of time, Haiti and Poland, and I've seen how important a social safety net is to people, the retirees of this country, people with disabilities and spouses and their children. It's really, it's something that other countries, that we take for granted here. Other countries just don't have that. So without Social Security, over half, as you know, older Americans would fall into poverty. While essential to so many, Social Security benefits are basically modest. The average monthly benefit is only $1,344, which means that a lot of people fall under that amount, which to me seems pretty inconceivable because I don't know how people can live on much less than that. Unfortunately, an independent and dignified retirement, as Max has said, is being threatened. Stagnant wages are grinding away at the middle class's ability to save for retirement, to save anything for retirement. And only 20% of the workforce have traditional pensions, and that's something that we've seen drop off, and people connected with labor know that very well. That was traditional pensions was a staple for retirement security, very, very important for a decent standard of living. That's why millions of Americans reach retirement age without enough private savings at all to live on. That's why 40% of Social Security beneficiaries depend on the program for 90% of their income. Now, when you think about that, 40% of people That's a very large amount of people that spend almost all their money before they get any kind of help, and that's very difficult because it's 90% of the people in the country they rely on that amount of money to live on, and that's almost impossible. Seniors are also suffering from a zero COLA, as was mentioned before. And according to the latest Social Security Trustees report, next year's COLA is estimated to be, so I told from another source, 0.2%, 0.2%, which is incredible. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean for us to face years of no or low COLA? It means a widow cutting her pills in half to make her prescription last longer. It means an elderly couple giving up a meal once a week. It means a grandmother giving $10 instead of $20 to her granddaughter for her birthday. The combination of the retirement crisis and no COLA means that many seniors are living increasingly difficult lives, lives they did not wish for and lives we should not wish on them. So creating a decent cost of living adjustment by fully developing the Consumer Price Index for elderly is just one common sense benefit improvement that would ease the economic burden facing millions and millions of our seniors. On the occasion of Social Security's anniversaries that we celebrate today, Congress should make this and other benefit expansions a priority to ensure that current and future retirees are able to celebrate their independence through a better quality of life for everyone. Thank you.
Well, we've been we've been blessed with all these wonderful members that have come. I'm going to just call out people in the order that they came. I hope I got that right. And anybody who wants to come up, I know that Eddie Bernice Johnson is planning a summit on Social Security. Why don't you, and if you want to stay where you're at, you can put on the mic right there.
Well, thank you very much. I did mention that I'm planning a summit on Social Security, which won't be my first one, but it'll probably be my largest one because there are more concerns than I've ever heard before about Social Security and COLAs, what have you. I want to share a story of why I chose the party that I'm in. Years ago, when I was a little girl, before domestic workers were covered by Social Security, my grandmother came home one day and said that her friend, who lived about 5 doors from us and owned her own home, was having to give up her home and move to Austin. I'm from Texas. And because they had an old folks home, because she had stopped working and had no other income. I really didn't know what that meant until after I had finished college and gotten married and still not old enough to vote because she had to be 21 then. I was talking to my mother-in-law about trying to decide whether I was going to vote for Kennedy or Nixon. And that seems crazy today. But just out of college, having returned to Texas from Indiana and had been in contact with a lot of Republicans, I could not make up my mind. And my mother-in-law said, well, just think of this. Social Security was started back in 1935 by Roosevelt. Then it was followed by Truman, who wanted Medicare and Medicaid. And he worked really hard. But when LBJ got elected as president, and he took in a big majority of Democrats, it was passed. And that is why LBJ went to Truman to get the bill signed. And that same lady I've heard you talk about would not have to leave her home because she would have Social Security coming in. And I started researching and found that Social Security had done more for minority women of Texas than any other place because they finally had a way to have income after they retired. And that also determined that I was going to be a Democrat. You just can't read that history and live as a person who's experienced a lot of things especially with neighbors. I was fortunate to have a two-parent home and educated parents, but it was not really that usual during the time. And so now there's no question about where I stand with Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, because it has lifted so many people. And just today, as I left the floor to come here, I did a statement on a bill that I was co-sponsored, that I introduced my version of it 10 years ago, trying to get Medicaid to cover mental health care. We finally got a skeleton of a bill out today, because most of us live every day seeing people that have some type of mental illness but no way to get cared for, because the facilities are not available and the money certainly is not available. So we're putting them in jails and prisons. But somehow we're going to get there when we pass the skeleton of a bill to get Medicaid to help cover some of mental health care. So it's a battle that we continue to fight, but we must fight it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie Bernice. Marcy Kaptur, great state of Ohio. Want to come up?
Thank you, Jan and Doris, for pulling us all together, and all of our members who are here, and each reflecting on personal experiences that they and their families have had related to Social Security and then Medicare. Without question, in the last century, those programs were transformational for every person in this room, every family that's represented, certainly my own, a family that came to our country 100 years ago. And a book's been written by Alexander Allred called White Trash. It's just come out, and I guess I fit in the white trash part of America. And when you really read the history of the struggle of working people who hang in the balance in this election, I think that Social Security and Medicare become very, very important, poignant issues for us to recall how a foundation stone was placed under every family in this country, and which party did it, and what's at stake for us. We live at a time when a lot of the jobs that had provided a middle-class way of life have been moved elsewhere. Certainly in the part of the country that I come from, Northern Ohio, it's actually staggering to see what has happened. And we've seen benefit cuts. We've seen retirement programs that we thought were guaranteed just pulled out from under people. So Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are lifelines to every American family. And I can guarantee you, when our parents passed, I went into putting away their items after their deaths, and our mother's billfold had two things. One was her library card, and the other one was her Social Security card. And it just reminds me how important it is to every person in this room, every family in this room, and it is a net built under, almost like a trampoline net, built under the families of our country. I'll just end with one of our members on the other side of the aisle this morning paid tribute to his grandmother, who just turned 105 years old. And as I listened to him talk, I thought, Social Security and Medicare are working. They're working the way they were designed, and we wish the same for everyone. Thank you so much for doing this, Jan and Doris. Glad to be here today.
Are you the longest-serving woman in the Congress? I just want to note that Marcy Kaptur, young as she looked, is the longest-serving woman in this House of Representatives. We're so proud of her. I wanted to give the mic to Dave Loebsack from Iowa.
Thanks, Jan. She almost said Ohio, didn't she? I don't know how that goes. Could have been Idaho. Yeah. Anyway, just very briefly, and Jan was with me a year ago when I had an event in Iowa, and I talk about my story a lot. My story was already mentioned, thank you, but I have to repeat it. I always say that Social Security and Medicare are the two greatest anti-poverty programs we've ever had in the history of this country. We can never, ever forget that, folks. I grew up, I had a mom who had 11th grade education and struggled with mental illness, and she was a single parent. And in the 4th grade, we landed on the front steps of my maternal grandmother's house. 2-bedroom house, 1 bathroom, all that. We had 4 kids. We were cramped the whole time growing up, as you might imagine. But my grandma was on Social Security at that time. My mom was on what was then AFDC from time to time, food stamps when they really were stamps. We remember going to the grocery store and giving those stamps and seeing how some people would look at us. It's a little easier with an EBT card now, but it's still not easy. But when I was a senior in high school, it didn't matter that I didn't know my dad very well. He died. And I was able to get to Iowa State University at that time. Since then, those benefits have been reduced dramatically. But I was able to go to Iowa State University because I got a monthly check from Social Security because my dad had died and he had paid enough in. I wouldn't be here today myself, 2 years from Medicare, by the way. I wouldn't be here myself today if it weren't for all of these tremendous programs that we're talking about. Quite literally, I wouldn't be here, folks. I have an obligation to protect these programs as a congressman. I have an obligation to make sure that they survive for succeeding generations. And one last point, I'm glad that Jan talked about other programs too. This is where I'm going to brag a bit. If you go online and you look at the Meals on Wheels cookbook, on page 64, you will see my recipe for Sloppy Joes because I'm a huge fan of Meals on Wheels. Thank you for putting this together, Jan and Doris. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We're going to protect these programs. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, what page was that? 64. 64, Sloppy Joes. Okay, thank you for that. And from the great state of Florida, our great member, Lois Frankel.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Thanks. Thank you. And thank you for this caucus for keeping these issues alive. You know, we're not hearing that much in the campaigns, but I could tell you in Florida, this is always the #1 issue for me. You know, we've heard a lot about how Social Security and Medicare keeps our elders out of poverty. But the fact of the matter is, it keeps a lot of people out of poverty. And I'm going to use my state as an example, which is the economic power of seniors. And we have a population of 19 million people in Florida, approaching nearly people over 60 make up over almost 23% of the population. And we're still growing there. Watch out, Texas. We're coming for you. But listen to this. The spending power of Florida's elders is $135 billion annually, almost $15 billion more than residents age 49 and under. And seniors account for 50% of all new home construction. Florida seniors contribute $3.5 billion to charities and pay $1 billion in local school taxes. I could go on and on. The fact of the matter is that seniors are more than carrying their weight, not only in Florida, but all over the country. And just think what a loss in Social Security would mean, not only to our older citizens who have earned this, but to everybody else. So with that, I say thank you all for being here, to the retirees and the one-day retirees, and I yield back.
Thank you, Lois. Good point. It's really true. We keep the economy not only of Florida, but much of our country going as seniors. And now, from another great Californian, Norma Torres.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Jan and Doris, for bringing us together. It's always a good day for birthday cake, you know. There are two things that, while I am in Congress, I will continue to work to bring about a fix. One of them is the issue with the COLA. Let me tell you how I learned about this issue. As a member of the State Assembly, I served with my colleagues here from California. I started to find out about seniors living together. And I thought, what a wonderful thing, finding love in your senior years. And as I began to tour senior apartments, senior buildings, I learned more and more that people were not in love necessarily living together. People were making ends meet, by bringing their budgets together, by scraping, dollars for dollars. And this was not their choice. This is what they had to do in order for them to not become homeless. And that is not the American dream. I mean, that is not why, you work so hard in your younger years and pay into this account. The other issue that is very close to me is the issue of folks like myself. I started working with a special work permit. In California, you can't work under the age of 16, but as a 15-year-old, I started working at my high school. And I've been working, I paid for 12 years into Social Security with a private job. And then I got a city job working as a 911 dispatcher and paid into that pension. But because of that pension that I will have for 17 years that I worked at LAPD, I will not be able to collect on Social Security, even though now in my position as a member of Congress, I'm paying back into that account. And that's the same story for teachers. They have a pension, but although they might have, like myself, have had another job in the private industry, or might have left, their teaching position for a while. For a while in California, we pink slipped our teachers because we had a $30 billion deficit. And now that they're back working, they will not be able to draw Social Security that they paid into. And that is just not right, because our teachers are some of the poorest elder Americans, because they are retiring with $20,000 or $30,000 pension. Not enough to pay, for housing and for all of the things that they need in their senior years. So those are the two issues that I am committed to work on while I am here in Congress. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you today.
And someone who's been a really great member of our Senior Citizens Task Force, again from California, Lucille Roybal-Ehlert.
Well, let me start with saying why and at what age Social Security became important to me and where I gained my first understanding of it. I was just a little girl, and my father was a public health worker and later went into the Los Angeles City Council and then became a member of Congress. But back when I was very young, I overheard a conversation between him and my mother talking about Social Security. And I asked him what that was and why was it important. And the way he explained it to me, not only in terms of the benefits, but he gave me a picture of what it was like before Social Security. My father would be over 100 years old right now. And he told me about the seniors that were homeless, living on the street, the seniors that were dying because they couldn't afford not only medication, they couldn't even afford food or heat. And that it wasn't until Social Security was passed that started to change. So that was my first introduction to Social Security, and one of the reasons that I am such a strong and avid supporter of it. And I want to compliment my colleagues, Doris, Matsui, and Jan Schakowsky, for keeping this issue in the forefront. But I particularly want to say thank you to all of you. No matter how hard we work in Congress to try and protect Social Security, to fight for the COLAs and all the things that you know are important, we cannot succeed without your help and your support and your stories and what it means to you in your everyday life. So I want to thank you for being here, for your advocacy, and for partnering with my fabulous colleagues who are here, and they are fabulous. You have no idea how hard they work on your behalf to protect Social Security. But as I said, we cannot do it. We cannot win this without you and your support. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for your advocacy. And I am convinced that because of you, we will be successful. Thank you.
Great. So the bells rang, but I do, Mark DeSollier and Raul Ruiz, Dr. Raul Ruiz from California, both of you, come up, say a few words, and I'm still is the leader still planning to come? I don't know. We were hoping for Nancy Pelosi to come, but in any case, then we're going to quickly cut the cake. Go ahead.
Thank you, thank you. I want to thank Jan and Doris for organizing this event and all of you who participated. I'm Dr. Raul Ruiz. I'm an emergency medicine physician from the desert down in Southern California in the Coachella Valley, very high senior population. But one of the things that really strikes us in the desert is that you have seniors who can afford their third home in Palm Springs, and then you have the rest of seniors who are barely making ends meet on Social Security, living in a trailer. I have taken care of many, many seniors in the emergency department. I can tell you firsthand that if it wasn't for Medicare, their life expectancy and their recovery from whatever illness would be completely diminished. And I can tell you through my own family experience and also visiting seniors in trailer parks and whatnot as a physician and as a person doing community volunteer service, that if it wasn't for their Social Security, they wouldn't eat. They would be homeless, and they wouldn't have any means of transportation to be independent. So the whole purpose of Medicare and Social Security is to have health security and to live a life with independence and to make sure that you have a quality of life